All right, so let's dig into the allegory of the cave a little bit to see how it might function as an illustration of Plato's metaphysics. That is, his understanding of the nature, the structure of reality, and what exists and how things exist. And let's start by looking back at a passage from the allegory. It says, when any of them is liberated and compelled suddenly to stand up and turn his neck round and walk and look towards the light, he will suffer sharp pains. The glare will distress him, and he will be unable to see the realities, of which in his former state he had seen the shadows. And then conceive someone saying to him that what he saw before was an illusion, but that now, when he is approaching nearer to reality, and his eye is turned towards more real existence, he has a clearer vision. And if he is compelled to look straight at the light, will he not have a pain in his eyes, which will make him turn away to take refuge in the shadows? He will need to become accustomed to the sight of the upper world. All right. A couple of things here that are kind of weird. One, what's this nearer to reality talk? What's this more real talk? And the reason that's weird is I'm standing here in front of my computer. How far away am I from reality? This phone I have, is it real? Is it more real? Less real than something else? And I'm not, I can think of a way that we might use the term real in this way when we say like, oh, this is made up of 50% real sugar and 50% artificial sugar. I get that. But this idea that we could move around the world that we're in, like this person in the cave, and move closer to reality is kind of odd. And it's kind of odd that some things would be more real than others. After all, aren't the shadows on the wall of the cave real? I mean, they are real shadows. But then Plato would ask us this question: well, what's more real? The shadow of the horse on the wall, or the puppet in front of the fire that's creating the shadow of the horse on the wall? And then he would say, and what's more real, the puppet of the horse or the horse that's out there in the world? And now we start to see like, oh, okay, so for Plato, there are in fact different degrees of realness. The horse that's running around out there in the world is a real horse. And the puppet that's representing the horse is a little less of a real horse, or maybe a lot less real of a horse than the horse. And the shadow of the horse on the wall is even less of a real horse than the puppet is. So there are these gradations of reality. And for Plato, this is important because for Plato, representation plays a key feature in his conception of reality and how it's structured. Okay, so for Plato, reality is made up of universals and particulars, and we'll focus here on particulars first, and then we'll get into the universals. Universals, which we'll come to see, they're perfect, and they emanate from the source of all things. So for Plato, that's the good, and if we can work hard to get our heads wrapped around exactly how Plato conceived of the good, that would be fantastic. In the short term, it may help you to think about how like conventional Western religions regard God as the source of all things, right? That God is this universal, perfect, timeless, unchanging thing, being from which all things come. And so Plato kind of had this conception of the ultimate good serving this function as well. It was perfect, unchanging, and all things emanate from it. And the things that emanate from it are what he would call particulars. And these things are imperfect manifestations or representations of the universals. So I'll give you an example. Kitty cats. Adorable, yes. Imperfect, yes. Why are they imperfect? Well, first of all, no cat's perfect. All cats have flaws. Even the most perfect seeming cat would have the flaw of changing, growing, aging, dying, decaying. And so for Plato, the things we see in the sensible world around us, and by sensible, I mean the world that we take in through our sense of taste and touch and sight and hearing and so forth, the things that we experience in the material world, these are particulars. And for Plato, these particulars are representations of universals. So Plato might say, I can define for you what a cat is without even having to make mention of any particular cat. I can describe for you the perfect idea of cat, not necessarily the idea of perfect cat, but I can create a definition of cat, or a conception, a form, Plato would say, of cat that is timeless and unchanging. And I can even do it without there being any cats that actually exist in the sensible material world. And I can do this in a way that allows me to define for you what a bobcat is, what a lion is, what a tiger is, what a mountain lion is, and what a kitty cat is. And I can do all of this by talking about the idea of mountain lion, or the idea of cat, and we can define this perfectly, and it's unchanging. All right, so for Plato, this plays this really important role in his metaphysics, that we have this intelligible realm of ideas that exist in pure, perfect forms, and then we have this sensible part of reality, which comes to us in through our sense organs. All right, so now we might structure this like this. There is the highest good from which all things emanate and come. And what comes from the highest good are ideas in terms of forms. Now we're talking about catness, dogness, horse. These exist as ideas in the intelligible realm that we can access with our capacity for rationality and intellect. And then we see down here at the bottom, we have particular manifestations, representations of these pure perfect forms in individual little kitty cats or puppies or cars or any of the things that you sense in the world around you. The particulars are imperfect copies or expressions or representations of these forms, and we can perceive them in our visible world, in our world of taste, our world of hearing, and so on and so forth. So the particulars exist in our physical world, access those through the senses, and the forms exist in the intelligible world. All right, so in the next video, we're going to dive into this idea of the forms, and what the hell are these things, and how do ideas exist in an intelligible realm?